Hello, hello, everybody. So excited to hear everyone here and have everyone here. This is a little bit strange. I have never spoken to someone through headphones like this before, so I got to kind of get used to that. My name is Daniel Kelly. I am the lead instructor at Vue School. I typically get to speak at a lot of really Vue-centered conferences. This is one of my very first more generic conferences. So I just and a front-end framework that'll take you really far. I am the lead instructor at Vue School, which means I get to teach a lot of Vue.js, but I have also done full-stack development for over 10 years before that. All that to mean I know what I'm talking about, and I think you're going to learn some interesting things today. Awesome. I don't think this is quite right, what's showing on the screen. Is there any way I can mirror what's on my laptop up here, guys? Just going to wait on that for just a moment. I had to be complicated and not use regular old PowerPoint presentation like everybody else, so I threw the tech team for a bit of a loop. So we'll see if we can get that up there. Just by a show of hands, who in the audience is using Vue.js in some capacity? Okay, excellent. So it looks like I am preaching to the choir, as they say. Is there anything I need to do on my end, guys? Who is the first time here at Devworld? Is this your first time here at Devworld? Likewise. Okay. Oh, is it not? I see. System preferences. System settings. Duplicate. Perfect. Totally my fault, y'all. Thank you all very much. All right. So let's get on to today's topic. We're talking about Vue, Inertia, and Laravel. And I want to do this in a little bit of a story style, have a little fun along the way. And so our story today begins with two different strangers who are quite different. On the left-hand side here, we have Vue.js. He's this cool swagger guy with a nice green hoodie. And on the other side, we have sexy Laravel, right? She is looking good. And these two frameworks couldn't look more different. Vue uses JavaScript, of course. Laravel uses PHP. Who here has used Laravel before? Anybody? Okay, excellent. So you know what a difference PHP and JavaScript really are. Single file component templates is how Vue does the VIEW, Vue layer. Blade components is the way that Laravel does the Vue layer. We have client-side rendering for Vue.js. We have server-side rendering for Laravel, right? Sending that nice, clean, static HTML to the browser. With Vue, we get this nice SPA magic, though. And this is kind of what Laravel was after in this relationship. Because Laravel has a classic multi-page application architecture. That means every time you visit a new page, you're having to re-download basically everything, from navigation to page to footer to all the things, right? So it all started when Laravel wanted to build more dynamic and modern single-page applications. Therefore, Laravel sought to partner with Vue in order to achieve its goal, and this is when their paths crossed back in 2015. I actually quite remember this personally. Taylor Otwell, who is the creator of Laravel, tweeted this: "Current React learning status? Overwhelmed." Been there. Learning at Vue.js because it looks easy and has a pretty website. All right. I was actually introduced to Vue.js at the Laracon just the year after this. And that relationship had already begun to really sparkle and shine even just a year later. As you can see on Twitter, back and forth, Evan Yu, Laravel, that relationship continuing and the frameworks continuing to work together to make our lives as developers easier. All right, so there have been various techniques tried in order to marry these two very different technologies. Technique number one is having Laravel Blade host the entire Vue instance. In this case, you basically have a single Blade file. You've got a div in there, probably with the app, with the ID of app somewhere, and then you just mount your entire application to that spot in the DOM, right? In this case, Vue really serves as the core front-end application. Vue consumes Laravel REST APIs in order to get the data, and Vue Router manages all the client-side navigation. All right, so option number 2 is actually fairly similar to option number 1, but now we have a Vue.js front end that's completely decoupled from the back end. The code no longer lives in the same project, or if you were using Vue CLI before that, Vue create whatever, right? And in this case, we still have Vue really serving as the front end. It's the core front end application, and it consumes Laravel REST APIs, and Vue Router once again manages all the navigation. Okay? Option number 3 is a decoupled Nuxt and Laravel integration. So this is just one step difference from option number 2. But now we're using a Nuxt site consuming REST APIs, and we're gaining some nice server-side rendering because of Nuxt. This is, by the way, the option that we chose to use in our course at Vue School called Laravel Backends for Vue.js 3. This is a pretty cool course if you want to build a link shortener, something like Bitly, and get hands-on playing with Vue and Laravel. Definitely recommend trying out this course. All right, option number 4 is Laravel Blade hosting the Vue single file components. So in this case, we're actually putting our components, we're writing all of our Vue code directly in the Blade files. And for a lot of Laravel developers, this was a pretty familiar way to go. This made things a little bit more intuitive for them, but there's actually a lot of drawbacks to this approach. But the good things about this approach is that we could continue to use all the server-side navigation and on the Laravel side of things, and we could pass data to the Vue components via the normal controller methods that we were used to as Laravel developers. Okay, so while each of these methods is effective to a certain extent, each of them presents their own distinct challenges, right? So we've got the overhead of having to do routing on the Vue side with Vue Router, plus build up a Laravel API, get all of our REST endpoints created and all that. So you have to do both things. Global components in that last approach, you would basically have to load up all your Vue components, send them all to the browser at once, whether they were actually being used on the page or not. And then we also had to ship, with that last option, we had to ship the template renderer to the browser because we're writing all of our Vue code directly in the Blade templates. So we needed to ship the renderer to the browser, which is overhead our users shouldn't have to download. All right, so what's a girl like Laravel to do? Is it time for Vue and Laravel to break up? Absolutely not. If you are looking to build a single-page application, a web application with Vue and Laravel, Inertia is probably a really good option for you. Now, I think the methods that we've already discussed, using a REST API is really still a great option if you need to support multiple kind of clients, right? Like a mobile app, a web app, Alexa integration. Setting up the REST API is great, but if you just need a web application, there's really no reason to have the overhead of managing a REST API as well as a Vue front end. So this is where Inertia comes into play. So who is this Inertia? Who do you think he is trying to get in the middle of the relationship between Vue and Laravel? Well, thank goodness it's not another JavaScript framework. It's not another JavaScript framework. Instead, it's some tooling that enables what's called the modern monolith. What is the modern monolith? It serves essentially as a smart approach to SPA development. It enables developers to build single-page applications with the front-end framework of their choice, whether that be Vue, React, Svelte, whatever. I would suggest Vue. That's just my personal preference. But whatever front-end framework you desire, you can use that and still use the classic server-side routing and controllers that you're used to in your back-end applications, whether that be Laravel, Ruby on Rails, Django, whatever your flavor of choice is. Okay, so the modern monolith is about building single-page apps without building a REST API. So let's take a look at a quick little example. This is directly from the homepage of the Inertia website of how simple it is to work with Inertia. So here we have a Laravel controller set up. It has an index method defined. In the index method, we fetch some users from the database. And then instead of returning a Blade view, now we're returning this inertia render function. Okay? It receives the name of the Vue component that you want to act as the page component, and then it provides the data to the Vue component. Now, in that second code snippet there, what we have is the Vue component. All it has to do at this point is just Vue. There's no like serializing the data to JSON and doing this very manual thing like in option number 4 where you're passing your data to your Vue components. And I've had real problems with that. This is seamless. All right? So how is Inertia accomplishing this really great dev experience? All right, so let's take a look at the flow. On the very first load of a page, what happens is all the HTML, all the CSS, all the JavaScript is sent down just like a normal Laravel application, okay? The request is sent to the server, and it gets back all the normal things. HTML. Awesome. But then we have this special data page attribute on a div, and this contains all of that data that was within the payload that you saw in the render function earlier. And this is what's going to get passed on to the Vue props. Great. Then we can display the entire page once the app is booted up and Vue does its magic on the client side. At this point, every navigation after that is all client-side navigation. Never again do we have to go back to the server to get the full page. The way that Inertia does this under the hood is it attaches a header called xInertia to the request, to the asynchronous request, and then that lets the browser, or excuse me, the server know, oh, this should be an asynchronous request. This should be something not the initial send back all the HTML, but instead now just send back the JSON payload with the data so that Vue can do with it what it will. This is a quick little example of some of the JSON that would be returned in this request. So you can see here it provides the name of the component that should be used as the page component. It provides the data for the props of the component along with some metadata. Great, and then we full page refresh. We can no longer use an anchor tag, the typical anchor tag, but neither are we using router link because we're not using Vue router. We're using Laravel's router. So instead, we import this special link component from Inertia. All right, basically it's a lightweight wrapper around the standard anchor tag, and it accepts the click event and prevents a full page reload. All right. We're feeling pretty good. We've got an SPA, and yet we're still doing Laravel like we're used to doing Laravel. All right, so we're connecting the Vue front end with the Laravel backend. You get to use Vue components with Laravel server-side routing. There's no need to set up a REST API. You just use your controller methods to send the data, and it's smooth sailing for the Laravel developers who use Vue. Awesome. All right, so this is just a quick example of sending that data down. We kind of already looked at that. But just to reiterate, okay, we're giving the component name as the first argument, and then we're sending the data, or excuse me, the page lives in that JS directory, JS pages, and then we send the data as the second argument. Okay, great. We can also, of course, do this directly in a controller. By the way, you also get authentication for free. It just works the way it's normally set up with Laravel. We also have support for server-side rendering, which surprised me when I first learned this. Now, you do have to have a node service running, but it's actually really easy to set up with both Laravel Breeze and Laravel Jetstream. So we can have our Vue components rendered on the server side within the context of a Vue application or a Laravel PHP application. Pretty cool. Another feature we get with Inertia is the ability to share data globally. This means you don't have to have some kind of global state management solution on the client, on the browser. You can do all that on the server side. So in this case, we're using an Inertia share function. We provide as the first argument the name of the data, and then as the second, of course, the value. And this can be done either synchronously or asynchronously. The asynchronous method, you just provide a callback function so that the data is only fetched when you actually try to access the data. So performance, we're caring about our users, right? So on the front end, the way you access this shared data that's set up on the back end is with the use page composable or helper function from Inertia. You can even use this use page function within your own Vue composables and set up your own logic that makes the most sense. And that's exactly what we're doing here. We're creating a use shopping cart composable that's a wrapper around use page. We can manage our head data and make that dynamic as well with the head component from Inertia. Let's take a look at what else we can do with that link component we talked about a little earlier. We can add an as property, and we can display absolutely any element type that we'd like. A GET request. This could, of course, also be put, patch, delete, whatever. And then we could even send data along directly right there on that link with our post and put requests and so on and so forth. Pretty handy. We can also customize the headers as well. All right. We're not left in the dark when it comes to forms. We don't have to do all the boilerplate that is common with booting up a Laravel form. Instead, we can use this use form helper from Inertia. We pass it there on lines 4 through 6. We pass it the values that we want the user to submit. And then on line 12, you can see we just bind that data to an input. Then on line 13, you can see we actually get a really nice way to interact with validation errors. So you continue to do your Laravel validation on the back end just like you normally would, but now you can display those errors very easily with the use form helper here. Okay? Notice there on line 10, the way we submit the form is with a post or put or delete. All those methods are available on that form helper. Great. We can also even remember state for our forms. That means if a user starts filling out a form, goes to another page, and comes back, that data is still there. So no more accidentally getting your data lost on your forms. If you're wondering about CSRF protection, that's free. You don't have to do anything. If you have file uploads to handle in your forms, Inertia can handle that as well. It automatically converts the request into a form data object if it detects a file input in the form, and even provides you access to the progress of file upload so that you can easily display a progress bar to your users. If you want to refresh a page only with slightly different data, you can call the router.reload function. This allows you to get the data for just a single property while leaving all the other data as is, saving your users time, right? This is all thanks to that only property that's available for the reload function. We can also do this when we visit completely new URLs and only update those specific page props. And this can also be done via the link tag. All right, so Inertia, Vue, and Laravel have collaborated seamlessly, enabling a great experience for us Laravel and Vue developers. We're all hanging out. In this case, three's not a crowd. It's all good. Of course, there are a lot more features that Inertia provides. You can go check those out at inertia.js.com. And do note that this is not the only way to have this SPA functionality, but still do routing on the server side. There are other projects who do very similar things, libraries like Livewire and Splade. Go and check them out, figure out which is the best fit for your team, and make your decision accordingly. Or go with one of those other options we talked about in the beginning. They're not invalid. They're just not the best way to do a web app, okay? If you don't want to have to boot up the entire REST API, then you go with something like Inertia, Liveware, or Splade. All right, that's all, folks. But before I go, I did want to share just a few things we have going on at Vue School. It seems like a majority of you are Vue developers, which is great. I am super happy to see that. But over at Vue School, we are doing a complete revamp of our signature course, the Vue.js Masterclass. In the last iteration, we had some things like Options API in there. We used Vuex, but now we're revamping it to be all the latest and greatest technologies. We're going to be using Composition API everywhere, whether that's your flavor or not. We're going to be using Composition API everywhere. We're going to be using TypeScript. We're going to be using Pina for global state management. And if you want to learn Vue or increase your Vue knowledge in the context of a real-world app, this is a super than I am. Go and say hey to them, grab some swag. We've got T-shirts, cheat sheets. This TypeScript and Vue.js cheat sheet is really nice. And of course, tons and tons of stickers. The Pina ones go fast. They might already be gone. I did want to say thank you very much to my colleague Mostafa Saeed. He is a new instructor at Vue School, just joined the team about 3-4 months ago, and he actually put together the bulk of this talk, was wanting to give it himself here, but was not able to make it. But he is a Laravel and Vue pro. If you are interested in those two topics, give him a follow on Twitter. That's at Moose Saeed. And give me a follow on Twitter as well if you want a link to the slides that I've shared with you all today. That's at DanielKelly.io, and I would love to put that in your hands. Thank you all so very much for your time, and yeah, go code some awesome things with Laravel and Vue.